Well, well, well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Satsang today. The happy song of uh, of self-discovery, freedom, happiness, emotional well-being, the whole the whole lot of all of the things that we as human beings crave and strive for. I think I got a little dullness here. Hold on a second. That's a little better. Uh, anyway, so good to be here with you. Um, as I was saying, all the things that humans crave, we just make the silly mistake that what we're craving is something out there. And this is what leads to the enormous greed we experience in the world and in ourselves. And greed is a very simple word, the way Buddha used it. It's not the hedge fund manager or the CEO, the excesses, the $800 million boat and stuff. That's just the most graphic illustration of it. Greed is simply anytime we think something outside of ourselves is going to satisfy us or make us happy. That is greed. That is all there is to it. So you can see we all participate in that. And what's the key to curing ourselves from this delusion? Well, it's to know yourself. And I titled this one, Know Yourself, Forget Yourself. Because it's a strange but beautiful paradox that we experience. To come to know yourself, you don't know yourself as a thing, as an object, as a personality. The more you do the inquiry, you discover that all of those characteristics that we used to identify ourselves with are transient. They're temporary. They come and go. You're not the same now as you were 10 years ago. You don't have the same beliefs. If you do, you're a fundamentalist. We got another problem. You probably aren't going to be here. So our beliefs change, our tastes change, our likes and dislikes change, our preferences, our ambitions, the things that interest us. If we notice that all the things by which we normally define ourselves, they're constantly in flux. They're not reliable. And then we try to build a life based on these things. And this includes our desires for things, the desire for something that I think I just can't live without, right, is gone within, a short period of time, sometimes a little bit longer, but oftentimes very quickly. To know yourself means to know yourself free of all external references. That's what it means. No external reference. That means I can't refer to my experience, my beliefs, my thoughts, my ideas, my concepts. I can't refer to any of those because they're all external. Yeah, thoughts are very intimate. They're very close. They seem to be in here, right? In here where I am. But if you just take a step back, and although they're obviously the thoughts inside the head feel much closer than a sound that happens on the other side of the room, right? Nonetheless, notice that you are aware of those from a peculiar vantage point. Thoughts need somebody to see them, right? Otherwise, what's the point, right? A thought that doesn't have somebody thinking it doesn't exist. I mean, it literally does not exist. So those thoughts are constantly coming and going. They obviously aren't you. The same thing is true of our feelings. All of our emotions, they come and go. That intense feeling that we really want to get away from, or that intense, ecstatic feeling that we don't want to ever lose, are transient. They all come and go. They're not reliable. They are, although incredibly intimate, are external. They are not in you. They're in the body. They're felt here in the body. But there's something even more subtle than the whole experience of our body that is perceiving thoughts and emotions, that is witnessing them come and go. And the same is true of our sensations. The whole thing that makes up the body, the whole experience of having a body, right, is nothing but this flow of sensations. Can anybody stop that flow of sensations? Is it ever the same? Is it ever consistent? Even if you put your hands together like this and just put your attention there for a moment. And notice it's not a thing like, a rock, something sitting there. There's a flow going on. And if you really put your attention there, you'll notice that there's tiny fluctuations. It's like a vibration, right? And a vibration is a constant change. A wave is a constant change. So it's never, ever the same. Ever. So if we want to know ourselves, we can't look to that which is other than ourselves. And this is, of course, where it gets tricky because we're so used to thinking of ourselves in terms of something, some object, some belief, some pattern, our nationality, our gender, our religious beliefs. We're so used to those objects, even though they change, that we identify with them. That this is, identifying simply means to make myself identical with. And so that becomes me. But they're constantly changing. And it is the nature of thinking that it needs to have a reference point, a concrete, objectifiable reference point. A place to put the stake in the ground and say, this is what I am. So if we take away all of those references, what do we have left? Not a thing. No thought, no emotion, no sensation can be you. You can certainly have them and you can enjoy them, right? There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not you. They can't be you. They're external to you. They're perceived by you. And anything that can be perceived by you cannot be you. Right? It's so simple. The only reason it's hard is because this idea that I must be something. There must be some object of mind I can conceive of that is me. But what if there isn't? And if you follow that simple guideline, if I can perceive it, it cannot be me. Well then, to know myself is to know myself as that which is completely imperceivable. Now, no object of thought whatsoever, no feeling, no emotion, no sensation, nothing. We've taken all of that away. Are you not still here? Quite consciously, quite definitively, you are still here. I am here, for sure. Yet you don't have an object to tell you that. There's no object of mind needed for that. Your parents didn't have to tell you that. You've always known your existence, but not as a thing. This is so powerful because you realize all of our sense of fear, of lack, of doubt, of concern, of worry, all come from thinking of yourself as some object. If you take all objects away, you also take away all lack, all fear, all self-concern. And this is what it means to forget yourself. If I'm something, I've got to watch out for it. I've got to guard it from everything else. But if I'm not, if I'm none of those things, if I just am, I don't have to watch out for it at all. I mean, really, think about it. You didn't start that motor. You're not maintaining it. You're not really doing anything to sustain that sense of being. It is self-sustained. So as long as my sense of identity is there, with this completely imperceivable but self-evident existence, there's no room for a smaller sense of I, with all of its fears and doubts and worries and concerns and pettiness and all of the stuff that we deal with regularly. All of which is happening, but none of which is you. And that's how you completely forget yourself. All problems are personal. All problems arise, excuse me, still not quite 100% yet. All problems arise from the identification with the form, with something, the body, the mind, the beliefs, with something. All of the problems are that. The I, the true you, that sense of being, doesn't have any problems. So you'll notice when something comes up, oh, this is really troublesome, you go, I've got a problem. Notice. Now, that thought, I have a problem, if it is not believed, what happens to it? If somebody tries to sell you a car, but you simply aren't buying, it doesn't matter how hard they try or how good they do, right? You just don't buy it. But this thought comes that says, I have a problem. And because of this identification with the mind, we say, oh, geez, look at that. I've really got a problem. Oh, I got a problem. Before you know it, you're completely embroiled in these thought patterns that are now, oh, this problem, what am I going to do about this problem? God, it's such a, I don't have a solution to this. What am I going to do? And you can just feel the energy begin to kind of rev its way up, right? It begins to spin itself up into stress. But if that thought comes, I've got a problem, and you go, no, I don't. It's just a thought. What happens? And here's the key. Because we've all been conditioned to believe those thoughts. You mean I can just reject that thought? Yes, you can just reject it. It's not true. It never was. Life doesn't have any problems, right? Problems are a concept overlaid on top of what in fact is just life happening, the way it happens. It's not personal. Life isn't going its way to get you. Right? It's not punishment, right? God is not punitive. She is completely lovingly corrective, nothing more. This is what it means to just forget yourself, right? If there's nothing you have to concern yourself with, no fears, no doubts, no lacks, nothing, no lacks, no lack, why do you have to even think about yourself at all? You don't. Knowing yourself and forgetting yourself are one. To know yourself as you actually are requires no concepts. It's just this pure sense of being, and you are all experiencing it right this moment. Not one person is not experiencing it. Okay, just checking, make sure that nobody said anything about volume and the like. Good, no, so we're all good. Yay. Yay. Regular tea today, Earl Grey, hot, for those of you who know the reference. Hello, Roberto. Good to see you. There's Bob. Hope you are well. I am. I'm much better. For 2.5 days, I could not speak. was just kind of, and it hurt every time I spoke. So I didn't bother doing it. And those of you who know me go, wow, 2.5 days without G speaking. I'd like to have witnessed that. Yes. Yeah. It's a kind of a once in a lifetime experience. I speak for a living, right? So anyway, I got lots of well-wishers and the like. So thank you all very, very much for your concern. There's Rosario, also in Madrid. There's Jay. Figured I'll chime in and say hello to my Satsang family. Fortunately, I pulled a long night at work. I'll be getting off late. The life of a trucker. Best time to be present, though. I love you. I love you too, Jay. Oh, beautiful Satsang. Ravi from Romania, dropping by for a couple of minutes, headed to sleep. Yeah, Romania is pretty late. Mindful Zero. Hey there, buddy. IG and the gang have been here every week. GP, just haven't messaged. Didn't feel I needed to. Having heart flutters, palpitations. How shall I approach this? Is it energy moving its way through? Dealing with lots of physical problems, including my skin disease as well. Is this all a good sign? What shall I do? Just be with it? Seems to be one tiny thing after another. Do you ever get issues too? How do you deal with it? Well, first off, we have to drop this idea that we all have that somehow spirituality is supposed to bring about this perfect, blissful, problem-free life, right? That is, nothing ever happens in my life that I don't like. In fact, it needs to, because if something happens in your life and you say, I have a problem, I don't like that, it doesn't mean life has done something wrong. It means it's run up against your identity, right? There's a wall there that is rejecting life. That wall has to come down. Now, when we're talking about physical illnesses and that sort of thing, as always, I have to be responsible, and so I'm not a doctor, and I always recommend for people to have the condition examined. Now, I know you have, so this isn't directed at you, but for anybody who may be listening, especially for the first time, I don't want you to think I'm handing out medical advice, especially if you're a lawyer. They'd love to jump all over that, because I'm not, right? I simply see the stuff reflected in the body as a reflection of the inner energy that is going on inside. And there's enormous evidence, clinical evidence, scientifically valid evidence that has drawn the lines that connected the dots between our early childhood traumas and our physical illnesses. The potential for something to go wrong in the body exists in everyone. Why does it in some people and not in others? Why can somebody smoke for 50 years and have almost no effect whatsoever? Somebody else for 10 years and they die of lung cancer. What is it that makes one resistant and the other not? It appears to have something to do, not appears. It's clear, it's not even controversial, that the environment of our inner world that has been shaped and formed by early traumas is the gating factor. It is that which turns things on and off, that makes something happen and something not. So when something flares up, our entire attention needs to be put on making our inner environment safe for ourselves. And whenever we see a condition as something we have to get rid of, we've created a conflict with it. We have created the conflict, and I emphasize that because it's simply the body functioning. It's not trying to do anything to you. It's not personal. It's not a karmic thing. You're not being punished. It is simply the way the body is responding to a silent stress. And that's really what it is. These early childhood traumas And I'm using the psychological term. There's other energetic terms I could use, but I'm just use the psychological term of emotional trauma, which is simply being in a situation where you can't run and you can't fight and the energy just freezes up and gets stored somewhere. It creates a certain level of stress because the body is busy keeping this thing away, right? It had to do that because you couldn't fight it, you couldn't run from it, which is like you're in a double bind. The only way the body can survive is that it has to take that energy and stick it somewhere. And now it's got layers there that is kind of keeping it under wraps. That takes energy. And if there's enough of that, it will eventually manifest itself in some ways within the whole structuring, the whole functioning of the body. So in a sense, you can say, is it a good sign? It is if you don't fight it, right? If you just stay with it, say yes to it. And when I say yes, I mean a total. Can you get to a total yes? Which means if this feeling or circumstance or condition was with you for the rest of your life, could you say, okay? Or is there some part saying, okay, how do I get rid of this? All right, what do I need to do to eventually be free of it? Right? That definition of freedom means, what do I have to do for it not to be here? So the mind says freedom from it means it's not here. But I'm saying that's not it at all. Freedom means my sense of well-being, my sense of self-knowledge is not at all dependent on any circumstance whatsoever. Now I am free of it, and it doesn't matter to me whether it's there or not. This is a sense of equanimity. And at that point, you really are free. And also in that point, you have freed it to do whatever it needs to do. Most often, it then finds the way to resolve itself and does disappear because it is natural for the body to seek an equilibrium. But when our intention is to get that, to make it go away, it's very subtle, but it's kind of it's kind of like you're running a gambit. Okay, I'm going to allow you, and in the process of allowing, that means you're going to go away, right? Right. That's disingenuous. It doesn't work. This applies to everything, every emotional thing we experience. Say, okay, I have this feeling. I may always have this feeling. I totally accept it, just as it is. And I love myself anyway. Right? Can you feel how that just drops you out of the conflict? The intention is no longer about changing any circumstance in order to get to a different state. The intention becomes pure self-knowledge, your own pure being. To just, all the attention comes into this moment right here and right now. And the process of cultivating compassion and equanimity, right, is stimulated because it's no longer about anything else other than that. Cultivating within yourself the capacity for absolute freedom and peace, no matter what. This is irrelevant. Does that help, Dale? It helps everyone. This is not an easy thing for most people. We were never taught that. We were taught to be at war. Look what happens. The economy of most of the West, and certainly of the United States, is based completely on you being distracted, not feeling. Buy something, don't feel. Do something, don't feel. Take something, don't feel. And this is about learning how to be 100% with your feelings. And when you're 100% in allowing, you are at peace. And it really doesn't matter what's happening out there. This is the practice. And it is a practice because we've not been taught to do this. We've not been taught to head in this direction. It's always been the opposite. And that's why it's a practice. That's why at first it requires effort. And really a consistent commitment, because you don't know at what point in your life everything may be just going absolutely smooth sailing. Everything's just falling away. You're just, the Red Sea is parted in front of you. And you have no idea at what point, what little button is going to get pushed. So, but if there's this sense that it's okay that that happens, as a matter of fact, I want that to happen, because if the button gets pushed, I can transcend it, right? And if that's your attitude towards life, it is a very short walk to the awakening of the heart, which is this place of total acceptance, total allowing. That's the nature of awareness. It's pure allowing. Notice that no matter what happens in your life, right, by the time you're cognitive of it and there's a reaction, a button gets pushed and there's some reaction taking place, awareness has already let it in. It hasn't, it's not doing any editing. There are no bouncers at this door, right? There's no velvet rope. It all gets in. And so it's only the mind with its various interpretations and associations, like, oh, no, no, no. But awareness, as you can tell, has already said, fine. It's fine. It's here. Somebody the other day, something about these feelings, they're so intense. Like, yes, I don't want to be here. I said, love, they're already here. They're here. Let's just be with them. You might as well. They're already here. So all the suffering isn't coming from there. They're coming from the fact that I don't want them to be here. Drop that. Watch what happens. And then you can find that our ideal of life and life's benevolence are not the same. And we can really surrender to the benevolence of life and find that life takes care of life and that you are life. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dale. It's a big message for everybody. Merck, hello, good local time zone to all. To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And he goes on, Doksen. He says, to forget the self is to be enlightened by the 10,000 things. That is to be awakened to the sheer wonder of the infinitude of life. Because now you are life. There's no more resistance to it. Yeah, Doksen. Highly recommended. Another great Zen master. Annette, my rock star. Hello, G and everyone. I have the impression that music, art, and dancing are direct expressions of the divine and therefore maybe also a part to awakening. What are your thoughts on that? Well, as you know, music, art, dance are a form that can take any form. They're this beautifully, perfectly things, I don't even know what to call them, right? That can perfectly express the energy and the spirit that is brought to them. So you can have music that is, celebrates war, or you can have music that just brings you to a state of inner peace. You can have dancing that is purely a commercial venture, just to be as explicit and as provocative as it possibly can, just to get your money. It can be done and the same thing for art, right? A great deal of art is just, commercial art, just to get your attention so it looks pleasant, so you get the message. I don't think that's their actual purpose. I think that's how the ego has twisted them. Because at the heart and soul of music, art, and dance, and literature too, storytelling, every kind of art form that there is the intrinsic sense of beauty. And the more the artist is serving that inner sense of beauty, the self-guided beauty without external references, without deciding whether this record is going to be a hit or not, right? The more that's done, the more of an artist you are, the more of an artist you are. Now, that doesn't mean the artist doesn't have to think about business. They have to show their work. They have to do that. But in the actual creation itself, in the creating, if there's a referencing going on, right, to something externally, you're diminishing it. So once again, being absolutely true to yourself without any outside interference, everything you do becomes a direct expression of the divine. It's what I talk about when I talk about kind of the phases of awakening. For most people, it becomes some kind of an insight. And once that insight has begun to be really imbibed, and it begins to make all sorts of adjustments to our thought patterns and our points of reference, it really sinks into the heart, where we begin to feel the truth of it, not just know it, but feel it. It's like it becomes our emotional makeup, and then continues to filter through as it discards old patterns and traumas and all of that sort of stuff. Eventually, there's this direct connection between the reality of your being and the lived experience as a human being. That's what's called a sage. That's what's called the wise one. That's what's called the guru, the one where there is no intervening agency that is editing or censoring. It's just pure expression. And the best artists, the best musicians, that's what they do. That's very true when you see any art form that is improvised, right? Like jazz or something. It is just, you can't think, you can't edit, you just play, right? And you hone your skill really to be able to get out of the way and let that happen. But that skill it's the physical, it's the mental, it's the emotional, it's the actual how you do things. But it's also being able to go to that place where you're not editing, where you're not referencing anything external, when it's purely you, and you're being guided by that, your own sense of the ultimate of beauty, and which will appear in a way that's unique to you, but everyone will recognize it as such. So yes, to me, the actual nature, the true nature of music, art, literature, dancing, storytelling, poetry, all of it is the divine, it is the essential nature of absolutely everything. But like all else in our human experience, it often gets appropriated by the ego, and thus gets twisted, right? And it becomes more of a, it's no longer art in my humble opinion. If the intention is for anything other to give expression to the self, yourself, your true self, it's not art anymore. It's commerce. And that for the artist, that takes time, because at first we have to learn by imitating. We just have to learn to imitate the best, right, and not the worst. And so we are kind of monitoring ourselves, but little by little, that all kind of begins to fall away, and you just kind of, a kind of a sense of a trust in your own capacity emerges. And that's, they'll call it finding your voice, or many different ways. So in that sense, it is informed by the awakening. Right? But in my experience, the only thing that contributes to the awakening is self-inquiry. We have to break down the ideas as to who we think we are. When we do that, we naturally break down the ideas we have about what we think everything else is, including art and dance and all of that. And the more there is of me, the true me, the more that's going to manifest itself in absolutely everything you do. So hopefully that's a good answer for you, Annette. Karen, namaste. I find being with my family very challenging. That's why I'm asking myself if having a family and living in a family situation makes it harder to stay conscious and maybe also to find the truth and get enlightened. Do you have a family, wife? I just noticed I get triggered all the time when I'm with my family. Well, as Ram Dass so brilliantly put it, if you want to know if you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. Our family of origin, mother, father, siblings, and that sort of thing, unless they themselves are growing in consciousness, are going to be living the model that you as a child had to conform to. So they're always going to represent, unless they've grown, they are going to represent that container. And so getting in their presence, there's an energetic communication going on, right? A family, think of a family as an entity, right? It's not just really a collection of individuals anymore. It's a system. The way the body isn't just a bunch of individual cells. It's a system that come together to make this one thing. A family is that. And so there's an energetic dynamic going on that's determined all the different relationships. Like, the cell in your finger has a relationship with the cell in your lung, right? It's the way it is. It's the way the whole system works. Now, in a family system or a communal system, and it can be an organization too, somebody can outgrow it. Somebody can find, you know what, I no longer want to live the role that I have been assigned in this container. I don't want this container anymore. Now, that's not unloving. It's not unkind. It's not even condemning, right? It's not that anybody is to blame. This is what happens. The system forms based primarily on the parents and their culture, which they implement to create the primary dynamic. And then it's reflected in all the siblings, and you come up and you're a part of that. Nobody does it. Nobody's to blame. But the very fact that you find it difficult means you have outgrown it, right? Now, does that mean all families should be avoided? Well, there's some spiritual teachings that say you should, yes. Yeah, don't get married, don't have kids, don't be involved in your family, leave it all behind, right? And go to an ashram, go to a monastery, or just go live by yourself. I don't think you need to be that extreme about it. Matter of fact, I don't think we in the West are even capable of such a thing, or rarely are capable of such a thing. Now, don't buy the idea that it makes it harder for you to stay conscious. If you had gone unconscious, you wouldn't notice the fact that you don't like it. You'd just be doing it. You just like a dog, right? A dog is trained in a certain way, and it doesn't have any issues with it, right? It doesn't have to go to therapy. It is completely conformed to that environment and doesn't have any sense of consciousness that says, screw off. I don't want to. I don't want to roll over. I don't care how many treats you give me. But you, as an awakening human being, do have that. And the awakening is noticing that this dynamic doesn't fit, right? It isn't me anymore. But the dynamic being such, like every system, it wants to maintain stability. So it's going to try to keep you in that role. For me, in my personal experience, I am not married now. I live by myself. I am not closed to the idea of a relationship or having a family. Obviously, I'm not going to have kids again. I'd like to, I'm not going to do that again. But I'm perfectly open to it. and because it's really impossible to live life without relationships. I'm not necessarily saying you have to be in a romantic relation, an intimate relationship, but everything we do is relationship. Everything is in terms of relationships. So put aside the idea that it makes it harder to stay conscious, right? What that means is that I want to what's the word I'm looking for here? What that means is that there's enough consciousness that this really isn't acceptable, but not enough consciousness to simply let it pass through you, right? So there's this sense of it's wrong. I got to change it. Our family is always going to be a mess. Unconscious families are always going to be a mess. Most people don't notice it. The only time you notice that they're a mess is when you become conscious. Okay? Personally, in my life, I actually had to leave that. I had to take myself out of it. And it started just by withdrawing from family events. And I didn't realize it until I saw the effect being around my family, my brother and his kids, and the whole extended family, cousins and all that. I saw the effect it was having on my own children. That when I bring them back, it would be like a week to get them back to their normal selves. They were just and I said, oh my God, my family really is sick. And I'm not going anymore. Boy, I was already the black sheep. Now I was black without any distinguishable characteristics whatsoever. Life was very benevolent. And not long after that, I got the opportunity to move 2,000 miles away from Chicago to San Francisco, started a whole new life, and kind of made my own way. But I had to get out of that bad relationship as well. My marriage was not happy. It was not good. And eventually I had to sever that. That was my kids. We're still very, very close. Always have been. For a while I was a single father, right? So we may have to, cut some strings and literally pull ourselves away. I always like to point out there's no hard and fast rule. You can't say, I've got to get away from them or I'm never going to become conscious. That's not true. You may need to, though. It's also, stay there. You got to stay there. Got to stay there and work it out, or until you get numb. None of that's true. Right? And just watch. Really watch. If you're really willing, if you're really putting an emphasis on being conscious and on growing that consciousness, right? Things will begin to line up to help you do that, right? And every time something pulls you in the family situation, you recognize it. Maybe you can't even do anything in the moment, but eventually you'll be by yourself. You just be with that, you process it, you forgive yourself, you see what's happening, and you make consciousness the most important thing in your life. And eventually something will open up, right? That will bring about a shift. Somebody else may notice that you're not as reactive. You could bring about a change to the dynamic. You could also just end up like I did, being plucked out and set 2,000 miles away, which was a really good distance from my family. So you're noticing the triggers, right? Put your attention, right? The trigger wants you to do something. And, we get a little bit more spiritually aware and we think we have to overcome the triggers. You don't, right? All you need to do is, I'm being triggered right now. That's consciousness. That is awakening, right? So before you just react, right? You wouldn't recognize that a button had been pushed. You just react. You wouldn't even know it because they happen so fast. It's reflex. Right? Now it's not reflex anymore, it's this. But you may not yet be able to stop the reaction from taking place. But that awareness, you stay with the awareness, that gap will get bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it just goes right through you and you don't react at all. Nothing but nothing can stand in the way of your enlightenment. It is happening. And the very fact that you're aware of this is evidence of that. Right? So just stay with your love of truth and it will take care of the rest. Beautiful. Thank you for that, Karen. I hope that was helpful. Milo. Hi, GP. What is a singularity? And is it special when you have a lot of time in your life? Oh, different questions. Well, singularity, according to science, is when the entire universe had been compressed into this ball of energy about the size of a teaspoon, right? Of course, you couldn't say it really was a teaspoon because there was nothing to measure it against, because time and space did not exist. So there would have been no measurements, there would have been no time. So you can't even say when it exploded because there had been no time. So you realize when you get to the singularity, you start bumping into the non-dual, right? Singularity, I will use that term, but in that I'm referring to the oneness of all being, right? That there isn't even the self and the manifestation of the self as if there are two. There's not God in creation. There is only being. And that being is infinite in its nature. So, the being of this cup and this microphone and this jacket is the same being. It is the singularity. So the singularity is the nature of all things from the spiritual perspective. And in that moment, in that place of singularity, there is no time, there is no space. All of those are simply relative concepts. They're projections upon this ever-changing manifestation. But the manifestation and that which is being manifested are not two. This is inconceivable to the mind. Right? But you can just kind of feel the truth of it in your heart. There is a thread of oneness that runs through everything. It cannot be explained. It cannot be measured. That's why it cannot be validated through our normal discursive reasoning or scientific method, because it has no substance. Wrong word. It has no form, right? So if it has no form, it has absolutely no existence from the point of view of anything perceivable, which means it falls outside the realm of any kind of scientific investigation, right? Which is why science denies it, right? Can't possibly be. And yet, this is our constant experience, You are always experiencing yourself, always. I mean, it just overwhelms me just to even talk about it. You are always experiencing yourself. It's continual. And what is special when you have a lot of time in your life? And is it special when you have a lot of time in your life? Sorry, that really got me for a moment. Just kind of the singularity of it. I just kind of got lost there. I got to bring myself back. I can't disappear on you during satsang. Okay. Is it special when you have a lot of time in your life? Well, when you have a lot of time in your life, to what use do you put it? That's what makes it special. Are you exploring your own nature? Are you dedicated to finding the singularity, which is you? That which is aware, of which nothing can be aware. You cannot be aware of yourself. This is simply the fact. And it is, if you take those times when you have a lot of time in your life and you dedicate it to this inquiry until it completes itself, right? Then it is special. Right? Because whenever there's a gap in time, something's going to want to fill it. Something is going to want to fill that up. Right? Most of the time it's unconscious. Right? But when you're conscious, you have the opportunity to say, well, what do I want to do with this gap? I want to know myself as I actually am. And that means putting aside everything that is not you until what remains is simply that sense of presence that cannot be set aside. If you get rid of absolutely everything, what remains must be you. Thank you, Milo. Wow, sorry, that one just almost disappeared on you. Hello, Ava. Namaste, G. Suzanne. Hello, Suzanne. Hello, GP. Is there a special connection to family, friends, and beloved ones, also over a distance? Or is this only in my imagination? I feel very close to my best friend, and I feel exactly when something is wrong. Oh no, that's love. That is love. There's definitely something special to that because your attention is there, your heart is there, and it isn't just there, wanting to talk to him or stuff. An energetic connection has taken place. When you really love somebody, you feel them. You feel their ups and downs. You feel when they're under stress. Now, in order to be able to do that and not get lost in it, you have to know who you are, right? So that you become so adept at reading the variations of the energy, you can tell when you've run into, some spot in you that has not been loved into its wholeness, and when it's emanating from somebody that's close to you. Because remember, we are one. This is not a nice idea, nor is it something we're going to attain in the future. It's a realization that we are now and always have been. The entire heart of humanity is open to you. With those people that we are really close to, right, that we really love, right, it becomes evident. Right? Now, as your love becomes broader and broader until it expands to the infinite, you'll find that of everyone. All happiness is my happiness. All sadness is my sadness. This is the, the great. There's a little known teaching in Zen Buddhism called Tozan's Ranks, and it talks about the phases of enlightenment. And it rises up to level 3. It starts with ignorance. It goes through, being on the path. You're committed now to the path, right? And there's ups and downs. There's moments of awakening. The aperture opens, the aperture closes, until finally it opens. And there's this sense of being absolutely everything. I am all. There's nothing other than me. All things are me. And it's bliss. And you'll hear people talk about it. And at this point, there is the teaching of the Arhat. And this is the ultimate attainment in Zen Buddhism of the Arhat, right? That's it. I have now attained the great enlightenment. I'm done. But according to Tozan and the true meaning of Zen, there are 2 more steps that happen after that. Well, if I am all there is, then all suffering is my suffering. Tozan called it the fall. And suddenly you're at the top of the mountain and you're tumbling all the way back down again. And suddenly this is what you might refer to as the awakening of the heart. It's suddenly, I'm not just away from it all, sitting on top of the world, that I'm not the sitting on top of the mountain. I have just fallen right into the mud in the middle of the street. All suffering is my suffering because all beings are me. And when that is completely embraced, you realize you're feeling everything in your body. In fact, your body isn't the body at all. Your body is your sensitivity to everything. And now, but because you have seen the ultimate oneness of reality, you are now prepared to endure the fall. where you not only do you fall, you gladly receive it, right? And then you finally embrace step 5, which is the ordinary human being. Everything is fine just as it is. Nothing needs to be changed. And at this point, the entire heart of humanity is open to you. And all the ills of humanity can be processed through it because there's no place for them to stick. You become the true bodhisattva, yeah, the healer of nations. Okay? So I don't know why I got off on that, but we feel that. Yes, I remember now. We feel that on a small scale when we feel this deep connection to each other. And those relationships, you know exactly what they're feeling. And I have some relationships like that. You know? I've cultivated over time a sensitivity that when I have a feeling in my body or in my heart or, you know, kind of the energy field, I no longer immediately assume that it's me, but in fact, I listen to it. And with a short period of time, I can usually detect where it's actually coming from, right? And that's when I'll reach out and talk to somebody, I'll, you know, just send a little message or, you know, just ask what's going on. And I can tell. And the closer you are to people, to somebody, the more that happens. I mean, this is the depth of love. And a true loving relationship, you know, as a couple, is a place where that can be practiced and cultivated, right? So that you can literally feel what they are feeling, right? But in order to do that, you first have to get to the mountain and come back down again. You have to be able to discern that what you are feeling is not a personal possession. You are feeling the world. This is what it's meant by Jesus taking on the sins of the world, right? It's not what people think it meant. It meant he felt it all in his body. But because of the purity of his consciousness, his awareness of himself as the divine, right, he could transmute all of those in an instant. Nothing could stick. And so he would just walk by people and they would get healed, right? Because he would process it, right? And nothing would actually stick to him. There was no personalization anymore, right? And this is the gift, right? When that heart opens. And this is the gift we cultivate in these relationships. You know exactly when something is wrong. The two of you are in fact one. There aren't two. The two-ness is the illusion. Their feelings are your feelings. And when you recognize that, and the feelings cease being personal, they cease being my feeling, you realize every feeling that is running through you is simply that, the atmosphere in the world. And none of them are you. This puts you in the position of being able to transmute every feeling there is. This is what Christ did. This is what was recognized as his power to heal. And other people have done that as well. But there's a tendency to focus just on the physical transformation that takes place. But that is always the last step. That's the tip of the iceberg. It's something in here that starts first, that just begins to kind of align itself with this, with your own inherent oneness, letting go of who you thought you were, right? To experience yourself as you actually are, and who you are in reality is the God that is being talked about. That is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. That is the Christ. That is the Buddha, the awakened one. Not one is awakened, but the awakened one. So yes, that is the special connection to friends and loved ones, and you can feel them. Right? I feel the things going on with the people I love that are close to me. I feel it all the time. I pretty much know exactly what's happening. But that's simply because I've gotten so used to this that this inner landscape is not so foreign to me anymore. It's really big, though. I have yet to explore it. I've yet to explore it all. So, a quick sec. Sorry, I didn't want to make a bunch of noises into the mic. I hope that answers it for you, Suzanne. Yeah, it's not your imagination. It's real. The imagination is that we're separate. That's what's imaginary. we are in fact one, and it's only a matter of time and just kind of a seasoning, a marinating in this, that your whole energy system becomes increasingly sensitive and can let more and more in. It doesn't have to have the hard boundaries anymore. And then you'll literally feel the whole world. That is what is meant by the saying that he took the sins of the world on himself. That's what it's talking about. He was capable of doing that and transmuting them. Martin, hi. If I cannot control if or when I wake up, what's the point of spiritual practice? Would it also happen without any sadhana? Or is it more likely if you meditate? Or, more down here, or, oh, I don't see any more, Martin, so. I'll go back to you. Yeah, I don't see any more, so okay. Well, it is just happening, and in the process of happening, it moves you to the sadhana, right? Just look for yourself at what drew you into this work, right? You didn't wake up one day, I think I'm going to be spiritual now, right? It's something inside just started to grow, right? Very naturally, very organically. You found your attention getting drawn places it wasn't drawn before, right? Now, you didn't control any of that, did you? The things we're interested in. I mean, even when you're, a child, any of the things we're interested in, we don't control all of that. It's coming out of our own nature. But when that time comes for the spiritual maturing to truly take root and become dominant, it's simply where our interests happen to go. So you begin to notice things. You get curious about things. You start reading books. You start listening to teachers. Right? You start asking questions. Now, you didn't control any of that, did you? Right? Look at all the people who are not here. Right? At this particular moment, there's like 50 people here. Right? That means there's close to 8 billion who aren't. Right? Now, why? Right? Let's say there's a couple million out there that are going to various teachers that are of quality. Right? There's probably not that many, but let's say there is. It's still close to 8 billion that aren't. Right? There's probably another layer that are interested in self-help, self-development, that are beginning to reach for something beyond what they had known. Did anybody cause that? Is anybody controlling that? If you look really close, your own interests, they just emerged in you quite naturally, right? And you didn't choose them. You didn't make up, I think I'm going to be spiritual today. That didn't happen. Matter of fact, your recognition of it took place well along the line. It had been going on before you even recognized it. I'm really not interested in that. I'm really interested in this spiritual stuff. Right? Matter of fact, so it had been going on, and in some ways you were the last to know, right? The conscious part of it, right? So it is happening, and part of it happening is inspiring you into a sadhana. Right? If you could stop the sadhana, if you could, right, then you should. See if you can. See if you can control it. See if you can make your interests go back to where they were before. Or if this has just so captivated your attention that you very naturally give it attention. You notice it's not really a discipline. It's simply a natural interest, right? We don't have to discipline ourselves into kissing. We kind of like it. We just do it, right? Because we're naturally drawn to it. So, and if you trust in that, you don't have to have a certain technique or a meditation or something like that. You'll find that what you need in the moment appears. And sometimes it'll be meditation. And I still practice meditation, which is simply, it's simply going to that place where that is watching everything else happen. It's very simple, right? Sometimes the feeling will come up about wanting to attain something, and I'll just notice that that's an idea of thing coming up that wants to set me on a path, right? Instead of acknowledging that I am that, it wants to put me back into the process of becoming that. And you'll notice that that's just patterns of thought, recurring patterns of thought, habits that are still standing, and they still come up, right? They may just continue to come up until they don't. But as long as you look at it and you see it, that's all it is. And this is my practice. This is all I need to do. I am that. It's nothing I can become. Right? If I could become it, then it would be temporary and it could be lost, which means I am that now. My mind can't grasp that. Okay, fine. I get it. It'll spin. Fine. Right? So you're going to find that the awakening is always happening and it is moving you, right? And it will continue to move you until the distinction between it and you falls away. And it's always been you. The real you is simply calling back the conceptual you to itself. The sense of I, which has gotten all muddled up with the activities of life, is called back home again. This is the return of the prodigal son, just bringing you back to your true self, because the sense of I, right, got all caught up with thought and began to think it was a thing, right? And just all the thoughts about its thingness, all of which are being perceived by that which was never a thing, never thought it was a thing, right? And has been watching the entire time. So you didn't choose any of this. It just happened. And if you could stop it, try, see what happens. Tell me how successful you are. Okay? It's not that kind of thing, right? When you're a little kid and you're playing with trucks, and then one day you don't play with trucks anymore. Nobody's going to be able to get you to play with trucks anymore, right? The kid discovers, the boy discovers girls, the girls discover boys. No more trucks, and no more teddy bears, right? They're just gone. Right? Very natural. Nobody chooses it. Nobody makes it happen. Nobody has to discipline themselves about it. Right? Just notice that. Let yourself off the hook. Don't force this. Follow your natural curiosity and your natural desire for freedom. And you'll find that they are simply fulfilling themselves. And in the process, you'll find that you want to participate in it. So you want to meditate. You don't mind when you're sitting there meditating and your mind's just blah, 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 because it's not about attaining an object anymore. It's about being present. Well, that presence, what's present right now? Oh, my mind is saying, yeah, okay. I'm aware of the mind doing that. I'm aware of all these thoughts. Okay. I'm aware of it. It's there. I'm here. Who's this I that is aware of them? And that becomes the burning question, to the point where it simply blots out every other question, and it's your entire mantra. That's the deeper meaning of who am I? And when that explodes into full awakening, nobody can say. Nobody can say. But where else are you going to go? Thanks, Martin. David and Elaine, hello to both of you. Juliana, hello, hello. Can you say something about the energy bodies? Thank you. I don't like to make, there's a bunch of different models. I mean, the chakras, in fact, are, an energy model, right, of different energy centers, the aura and other things. I try to not be too conceptual about it and become more experiential. Right? And what is my experience? My experience is that my awareness goes way beyond the boundaries of this body. Matter of fact, this body appears in my awareness, whereas it seems as if there's an illusion that I'm inside the body. And of course, that's what most people feel, that the perimeter of the body defines me, defines my space. But I've come to see quite clearly that I'm holding this body in my awareness and that it extends way beyond it. Right? And that would also include any energy body, an aura, no matter how big it is, it's appearing within this awareness, this conscious awareness. Well, that makes me realize that the awareness itself doesn't have a boundary. It's not contained in anything. What I am is what contains absolutely everything, and it cannot be contained. So when I use the term energy body, or if something is energetic, I'm really using it in a way to just help people become more in touch with the nuances and subtleties of their feeling rather than creating another conceptual model that we can get stuck in. Right? It's obvious that we feel all sorts of stuff energetically, right? And I have to say it's energetically. If I was a strict materialist, I could just boil it down to it's sensation, it's emotion, and thought. That's it. That's all. And you hear me use those expressions, right? Because that is the sum total of what we experience. But now, what is the nature of that? What is the nature of thought? What is the nature of emotion? What is the nature of experience, of the sensations? Not looking at it from our model of there's a physical body and this stuff happening around it, but your direct experience. I don't experience that. I experience energies. I experience feelings. I experience what are called sensations, but be it thought, feeling, or sensation, I'm experiencing them all in exactly the same medium, right? They're different ripples or currents in the water, but it's all the same water, right? And I've just come to recognize that I am this water in which all of these things are appearing. Now, it can be useful to speak in terms of the energy bodies, and as a model, it can be very helpful. I will point people to the energetically, right? Which means it's just happening on a very, very subtle level, right? It's happening on a level that is kind of the, sensation, emotion, and thought at the level of experience are the only thing we ever experience. And yet they are all just different frequencies, you might say, or vibrations of something more subtle. That subtleness is what I would refer to as the energy body. You could also refer to it, as Buddha did, as to repository consciousness. Right? This is the shunyata, right? It is the most fundamental form. Beyond that is the formless. It is just pure being, unmanifest. And at this level, it is what we call energy, right? And that's the best I can put it. It is just kind of everything boiled down to its essence, just kind of a primary vibration that can vibrate as thought, it can vibrate as sensation, it can vibrate as emotion, and those are like, the three primary colors that can blend together to make the infinite range of experience that we have. So becoming sensitive to energy really means you're beginning to become sensitive to the nuances of thought, emotion, and sensation. So they're no longer a problem. They're no longer something I have to get rid of. They're actually the vibration of manifest life. Right? But, and this is an important but, none of that could appear if you weren't here to witness those. So you're something altogether. You're not an energy body. You're not a body at all. The bodies appear in you, right? You are not in them. The idea of being in the body is an illusion. It is a perceptual distortion. All of this is in you, right? It's just an idea that we are the body, that there is a physical body and a physical universe that has been projected over your actual experience, making you interpret your experience as if you were this little consciousness somewhere in here watching things, when in fact, consciousness is formless, spaceless, and timeless. It doesn't exist in space and time. Everything appears in it, including space and time. That is the true body, right? That is what is. Everything else is an appearance. And that which is even prior to energy. It is being itself. It is you. Hopefully that answers it for you, Juliana. I know my answers are kind of off, but I'm a little off in space right now. Not spacey, but just kind of, sometimes you get this 1 foot in one world, 1 foot in another. I got to keep myself here. But I will, because I love being with you guys. David and Elaine. Rumi said, God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. I spend my whole life trying to put it into words, knowing perfectly well every time I open my mouth, I fail. I gladly accept my failure. However, we say the clarity of the message and pointings here indicates it is a good translation. To borrow a phrase, thanks for putting the F in ineffable. Nice. Nice. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yes. Silence is the natural language. It's very true. For most, though, trying to get, I don't bother trying to teach silence, meditate, don't think, quiet your thoughts, because I find that that's just another thought. And that any effort trying to quiet the mind only makes it louder. As Muji put it, trying to quiet the mind is like trying to stop the wind dressed as a kite. It's just not going to happen. So it becomes not that kind of effort of will, but the natural consequence of understanding. Oh, I am the silence in which all of this is appearing. In fact, if there wasn't this background of silence, nothing could appear. When you go to a concert, you want it to be silent to hear, right? If there's all sorts of noise and stuff, you're straining to hear. The music isn't heard. Right? Everything requires this backdrop of silence. Right? It's like, you take a diamond and lay it on a bunch of rubble, you might not even notice, but take that same diamond and you lay it on that black velvet, right? Oh, wow, all the facets of it begin to show up. You are the silence, so you don't need to try to stop anything. Simply come back to yourself. Notice that thoughts come and go and you are hearing them. And you can even notice that oftentimes there'll be a little gap between thoughts, like what I just did. Because your attention was on my words, when I stopped for a second, there was no thought there. It was silence. Then the mind starts up again. And that's just habit, right? We don't have to fix that. Thank God. We don't have to do anything to that, right? The mind will stop, will grind to a halt all by itself when it no longer has all of your attention. Thank you. I don't need you right now. So my first meditation I always do with people is that simple body awareness, just feeling your body. Just closing your eyes and bringing your attention into your body. Within moments, the mind will get quieter because it doesn't have your attention. Your attention feeds it. If it doesn't get it, it has no energy of itself. It's not a generator. Okay? It must get it from you. So if your attention goes to the space in which thoughts are appearing, and you're aware of that, well, you're in the silence. You are the silence. Right? The silence is not void. It is empty of content. It is not empty of being. It is being itself. Beautiful. Thank you for that, David and Elaine. Steph, hi all from Frankfurt. Frankfurt. That will be my first stop on my European tour. Eileen, hello Eileen. Hello GP. How to comfort someone who lost her husband recently. Much love to you. Oh, wow. Well, be with them. Be with them in the experience of their grief. That may sound strange to people. I'm supposed to grieve with them, and yes, but bring to it, right? Because it's not your direct loss. You can energetically connect with them, share their grief, but because you can do it from a different position, it literally allows you to help transmute it. Remember, the purpose of grief is not to get rid of grief. It's not necessarily to comfort. Grief has a very important purpose. It's like fear, right? Fear has a very important purpose. It's messed up because psychological fear, right, is imagined. But fear has a very real purpose, right? There's danger, I hightail it, I get out of there. The whole body goes into that effort. Grief has a purpose. And that purpose is to make an adjustment to an irrecoverable loss. You know, there's a dynamic between husband and wife, especially if they really love each other, right? There's a beautiful flow. They finish each other's sentences. Most things they don't even have to say to each other, right? They know what each other like. It's truly a loving relationship. They know what they like, right? And they will willingly give it to them. So there's a third entity that is created, which is the relationship, which has a life all of its own. When one of those dies, whether it be a protracted illness or suddenly, right, that connection is lost, right? That is, that circuit can no longer complete itself. And the one who is left behind has got all of this emotion, this entire life that has been constantly in relationship with this other. Suddenly they're not there. What happens to that energy, right? Well, it's painful, right? We feel it as pain, and this is grief. But grief is how the body adjusts the energy to the new environment. It's how it lets go of what it knows is gone and begins to find its equilibrium in its life, which can take, it can be quick, right? Sometimes it can be quick, sometimes it takes a while. I know that if grief is resisted, it can end up never getting resolved, and people will be weeping over it and telling stories about it for 20 years, completely blocking the possibility of another relationship or the kind of healing. Grief is the healing, right? You must let it do what it's doing. Just like blood is what heals the skin. Right? you don't want to stop bleeding, right? You're just helping it. You're protecting the wound. The body's healing itself. That's what grief is. So you celebrate her husband's life. Celebrate what they meant, right? Just constantly bring them into the joy of it, right? You don't have to announce that life is impermanent and there is no death and all sorts of stuff, which is just, unless it's done at exactly the right moment, is cruel, not helpful. Be with them on that. Celebrate Celebrate them. Be with them when they don't know what to do, right? Because your whole life now is different. Everything is. I mean, it's very similar in a divorce, right? Except the person's is still alive, and most of the time you don't really like them. But you know, a lot of times in divorces, sometimes it just doesn't work, but yet there's still this energetic thing going on. Some grief has to take place. When we lose a job we love, when we lose anything that we're attached to, obviously a close relationship between husband and wife is one of the most severe things to lose. And so you're just being present. No philosophy. Don't have to give them spiritual ideas, right? There may come an opportunity to talk on it at that level, but not until the grief has begun to reroute itself. The system is incredibly smart. It knows what's happened. It doesn't want, it doesn't want to accept it. It wants to try to remake those links, but if you're just with it, it will eventually see for itself, okay, I can't do that. I have to now create a new energy, and it will. I guarantee it will. You won't have to even do it. I've watched film documentary. One in particular comes to mind, and it was elephants. Elephants are extremely emotional critters. They have very tight bonds with one another and their children, on a par with us. I mean, we think we're not. We're not, right? And this mother had given birth to the baby elephant. Remember, elephants carry them before they give birth for 22 months, almost 2 years. Right? There's a bond that cannot possibly be understood by the mind. Well, this elephant was born, and the leg was deformed. He couldn't walk. The entire tribe, this entire pack of elephants, I can't remember what the name of a group of elephants was around trying to get this new baby elephant to walk. It wasn't going to be able to. And you could just feel the sadness. You could feel the sadness in the mother. She stayed for days, right? Just trying to coax it, see if there was anything that could be done. And then she realized there was nothing that could be done. And you could just see the moment when she finally let go and just let herself accept. Right. Now, that wasn't a conscious thing on her part. There was no processing. She didn't go to group. You just watched it happen. And she stayed there for a while longer as the baby got weaker and weaker and weaker. Yeah, I mean, he couldn't even stand to suckle until she finally left and walked away. It was just really heart-wrenching to see, but you could see how this really works. Right? There's nothing, people come, oh, it's all right, he's in heaven now. All these things, euphemisms to try to make you not feel that. And it's the worst thing you can possibly do. Right? Be with them in the grief totally. Right? Without, wailing, without taking it all on. You're taking it to the point where you can transmute it and be a presence that allows them to not run away from it, but to be completely present with it. That's my, that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, that gets me. The hardest thing for us humans to learn is to let go. Facebook user. Hello there. What are Christian mystics, and why do you barely hear of them? Because the solidification of Christianity into the Roman Catholic Church and the theology that was really a servant to the empire, which is now mutated into more virulent forms like the fundamentalism, which is even worse, by the way. Mystics were a threat, and so they had to be disposed of. And so they were burned at the cross for heresy. They were killed in various ways. They were tortured, until they either got them to admit their sin and then they killed him, or they wouldn't admit their sin and then they killed him. Either way, they made it extremely dangerous to for anybody to have a direct experience of God. Now, that's what the mystic is. They directly experience God as the self, not as an other, right? And of course, the entire religion is Christianity, as we have inherited, is based on God as the ultimate other. God takes human form as Christ, to redeem us from our sin, which is breaking the rule that God made. The whole thing is just weird from the get-go, but it puts all the power into the church as the vehicle of forgiveness for this sin. This is how you're going to get there. I'm a Christian mystic. I don't see Christianity from a theological point of view. I see it from a mystical point of view. To recognize the divinity, which is the absolute unknowable appearing as a form, as a human being, is mystical. The whole idea of being both God and man is mystical, right? The fact that that's true about you, which is what Christ actually taught, right, is the antithesis of church, which wants to have the focus of power, and the mystic is a complete denial of and threat to their power. Because if I have the direct experience of God and I don't need an intermediary, their power falls away. That, of course, is exactly what Christ taught. And he taught union with God, not relationship. In fact, in the Gospel of Thomas, he makes the most amazing statement. He says, "He who drinks of my mouth shall become as I am, and I shall be him." Pure mysticism. Mysticism doesn't mean, weird stuff, funny hats, owl on the shoulder, that kind of thing, right? Drippy candle and, old books and people with hair like mine hunched over an old table. It indicates that which is beyond reasoning. It's beyond thought. It's beyond what the mind can grasp. It goes to the realm of the pure non-dual. Non-duality is mystical. Your true nature is mystical. When I ask you to put your attention on yourself, that is, withdraw from thought, which is you are seeing, so it can't be you; emotion, which you are feeling, so it can't be you; sensation, which you are feeling, so it can't be you; and the fact that you cannot perceive yourself at all, you can only perceive other, yet you know that you are, that is mystical. That's mystery. That is the mystery. I am, and I know that I am, but I don't know that I am. Pure mysticism. And so all Christian mystics were wiped out as best as the church could. They tried. If they couldn't, then they canonized them, made them somebody special, a saint you would worship. But the whole idea is you cannot be like that, right? Which was the whole message of Christ, right? It wasn't worship me, it was be me, right? Come unto me, right? And this me he was referring to was not that body. It was the infinite consciousness that us mortals have named God. And that's why you don't hear of them very often. Saint Germain or Moira, Meister Eckhart, you do hear about. He was put on trial for heresy after he died, but he was so prominent because he was a priest. He was so prominent and so well known, and was just so good at preaching that the church didn't touch him, right? But there was a contemporary of his, I can't remember what her name was, who was probably even more mystical than Meister Eckhart. She was burned at the stake, Okay? That's because she wasn't anybody in particular. She didn't have that kind of social clout, right? She didn't have a big social media following. Right? So that's why you don't hear of them, because it is the antithesis of all Christian theology. Even fundamentalists who talk about having the personal relationship with Christ, if your personal relationship with Christ makes you say something that contradicts the theology of that, they will crucify you, right? No, you're not having the real experience. You're under the spell of the devil or something like that. They will completely, even though, but no, this is what God told me. No, that couldn't have. Contradicts the scripture. You know, what we say the scriptures mean. So my experience in 1971, all those years ago, on the bridge, was a mystical experience. Totally. I mean, I was transported to another place, right? Right? There's no explanation for it. It did not come from somewhere. It wasn't knowledge I had gained and studied and absorbed. It was a spontaneous appearing. It was a virgin birth. It came out of nowhere, right? And just completely took me over. And this is the nature of it. Every time you have an insight, an aha moment, guess what? That's the mystical experience. You have to realize that this is the nature of all true spiritual experience. It is mystical, right? It has been mysticism has been characterized as being, irrational and that sort of thing, but it is super rational. It is beyond the rational to the direct knowing. You can have the mystical experience and then find words to describe it, metaphors to use, right? Which is what they all do, right? That mystics do, trying to articulate that which can't be articulated, and teach in a way that brings you to have that experience, right? Pointing you back to the same place, right? And if you keep looking there long enough, something's going to explode. It's inevitable. Don't know when, nobody can say. When the end of the world will come, right? Nobody knows. Not even the Son of Man knows, right? But it will come. Hope that answers your question, Facebook user. Hello, Kiran. Namaste. Eileen says, GP, of course. Good. Sending love to Sifu. Thank you, Penny. Jacqueline. Hello, Jacqueline. Sometimes I feel like this understanding I cannot love myself as the person I am, that I cannot love my body, I cannot love my life, I cannot love myself as the human being I am, which I know is not all of me, but it is a part of me, right? Yeah, absolutely. And that, yeah, absolutely. Totally. The experience of being without the human body and mechanisms and thoughts and feelings wouldn't be possible. This is the vehicle by which the real you knows itself, right? Otherwise, there is no experience. It is pure emptiness. So it's coming to understand what the human actually is, right? Now, I draw a distinction between the who you are, the human being, and the conceptual person, who we've come to believe ourselves to be, right? Who we've come to believe ourselves to be is limited, it's finite, it's contained, right? This is what I say, this isn't you, right? But your nature being love, you love even that. Even this messed up, stupid, right? Problem-ridden thing. Once you see all it is not an entity. It's not really a person. It is simply the way the whole energy system has gotten programmed as it needed to be in order to function within an environment. Without that programming, it wouldn't have been functional and you would have died as a child. So that had to happen. That conditioning had to happen. It's not a problem. We just now have to come to see that that conditioning, or the person, is not my actual self. As that happens, the functioning that we identified as the person starts to loosen up. the boundaries start to come down. This becomes more expressive. It becomes more available to it. It's not that your human life now becomes, going to a monastery and you're just, denying yourself every human pleasure. On the contrary, it becomes more pleasurable because there's no dependency on them anymore. And you're not holding on to anything anymore. So there's this beautiful flow of life. And that flow of life is the human being. Right? The essence of life, the pure reality of life is the self, which is unknowable, right? So how does the self know itself? Well, it knows itself as you. You are God knowing herself. You are the goddess. Not a bad job, huh? So that thought, I cannot love my body, nonsense. That's a very distorted spiritual notion, and obviously it started with the whole denial of nature, which was the fall, right? Which was an attempt, to make all of nature and man sinful, right? And separate you from God. I mean, how can you be separate from that which is all and everywhere? You can't, right? So in conceptually, it created this idea of a separate being. There is no separate being. There is only God. There is only reality as it is. So this is divine. This body, this one right here that looks like this, right, is the divine. Your body is the divine. This is the God body. You have the goddess body. So how can you not love that? Right? It's only because we see it as separate, something bad we have to overcome, that it becomes this thing that I can't love. When you realize, no, there's nothing wrong with that. It's only the idea that I am the body, right, that needs to be disposed of. If I'm not the body, that doesn't mean the body goes away. It means the body now is myself expressed. It's not what I am confined to, is the vehicle through which I, the absolutely disembodied infinite consciousness, manifests itself as a universe. And so you can now begin to love your life. Love the beauty and power and significance of the human being. Because this is the only way God can know herself. This is God. There isn't two. There's not this spiritual thing up here and then your body here, right? That's the mind's invention of a separation. There is only God. So every experience you have is God. Every thought, every emotion, no matter what it happens to be called, is the emanation of, the vibration of the truth of your being, the truth of you. So you are the goddess. This is not just a cute idea I like to tell people to make them feel good about themselves. It's the fact. And so everything is that. As that begins to dawn, you'll notice how the mind just kind of separates and it evaluates, oh, this is better, oh, this is worse. I shouldn't have that thought. I really want that thought. It becomes this kind of inner witch hunt, right? I'm trying to get rid of all these bad things so I can be a whole human being. You don't need to get rid of any bad things because there aren't any. All the bad things are all what have been defined simply by thought, by mind. I'm telling you right now, you are the divine. You always have been, you always will be. There is no separation between the human and the divine. The imaginary separation that somehow we are trying to close never happened. If you realize it never happened, you can stop trying to close the gap. And then you can just start reinforming thought that you can let go of those ideas that somehow I am redeeming myself, right? Nothing needs to be redeemed. There's nothing wrong with you. So it's not even like this is a part of you, right? This is the manifestation of you. And a manifestation can't be anything other than the perfect representation of what it's manifesting. What is it manifesting? Infinite love, infinite consciousness. In your case, infinite femininity. In my case, infinite masculinity. which are just kind of primary forms, like primary colors, right? The primary form is masculine and feminine. Everything in the universe, that's an integral part of the entire thing. That is known mythologically as the gods and the goddesses, right? But those are all you. Athena is you. Aphrodite is you. They're not something out there. They are representations, mythological representations of your actual nature, which is now and forever totally whole, singular, unified. So now love your body, because your body is the very manifestation of God, or goddess in your case. That's what it is. It's not a problem you have to get rid of. It's not something that has to be fixed. We simply have to dispose of this idea that you're anything other than what you actually are. And you are the divine experiencing itself. God knowing herself is what we experience as you and the universe. And the entire universe is also you, because you needed a place to be. It all happened at once. You and the universe arise and are arising spontaneously and continuously. Had no beginning, has no end. Everything is being right now, right now, right now. So, welcome to your goddesshood, Jacqueline. There's Ursula in Portugal. There's Robin Waters Dykes. Hey to you. There's Dale and Christine in Massachusetts. Hi, guys. Daryl in Maryland. And yay, made it. Yay, I'm glad. Tammy Hill, I'm new. Wonderful. You do readings, I hope. And hi, Robin. Nope. Tammy, as you can tell, I don't do readings like that. There are plenty of people who can do that. I'm here to show you why readings can happen at all and what's beyond them. If you know who you are, you don't need anything more. You know, this knowledge, for lack of a better word, is the ultimate knowledge. Now, I say that with all humility. It's not a truth that I'm giving you, because truth actually includes it all. It can explain why a reading can work, and it can explain clairvoyance and clairaudience, all of those kinds of things. They're all natural phenomena, right? They all have at their essence a single reality, and it's that single reality that I want to bring everyone's attention to. Recognizing that it will permeate, transform, and enhance, amplify everything else you do as a human being. So I just put my attention on that which is most primary, right? And I let that take care of everything else. This one deep. Hello, Patrick. I guess we're the only two listening here. New as well. Oh, Robin, wonderful. No, you're not. I'm actually on YouTube, and I'm on 3 different channels. Two for Satsang on Facebook. So you could be in the Enlightened World Network. You could be in my private group, GP Walsh Spiritual Teacher, or you could be on YouTube. But you guys are on Facebook. So, oh, Robin, you're new. Wonderful. Patrick, yes, sir. Is he doing? Let's see. There's Jonas about inner reconciliation. Resistance comes up a lot overall lately. Some heartbreak and disappointment, feeling of rejection, abandonment come up. Old stuff that the ego suffers. Old hopelessness stuff and so on. It's playing in the body mind. I've gotten more attached and identified than usual after the Muji retreat and a heartbreak disappointment with a woman. Well, that'll do it. That will do it. So happy to be here now and just surrender to all, allowing everything. This is the beginning of something oh so great. I feel that. So blessed with inner reconciliation. Came in such a perfect time, GP. Yes, when in 100% of allowance, what is, There's such an immense, untainted, natural peace. And yes, and the process of inner reconciliation is how we simply get ourselves to a place where all the little hidden places where we've been holding on to stuff and hiding and the like can come to the surface in the most loving and welcoming environment. So it doesn't become a battle with yourself. You just provide such a safe space for your whole energy system that all of the things that it had to hold on to so tightly, it doesn't need to hold on to anymore, right? The sun and the wind were having a discussion. The wind was saying, you know, I can do anything you can do. And the sun says, okay, there's a guy over there in his coat, because it's kind of chilly, right? I want you to get him to take his coat off, right? And so the wind blew. Ooh, blew hard. Get him. We're going to get that. The more it blew, the more the man hugged the coat to him. The more he held on tight to it and slumped over and made himself miserable. The wind finally gave up. I can't do it. And the sun said, well, let me try. And he just started to glow, right? And of course, the man just kind of like, off came the coat, off came the shirt, off came the pants, right? You're melting the ice of our programmed conditioning through this environment of pure unconditional love. That's what inner reconciliation is. Pure unconditional love. It's just showing you how to really do that, how to actually come to that place of pure unconditional love. And you can see the effect that it has. And it's okay. Stuff's going to come up. It's going to continue to come up until it doesn't come up anymore. That's all I can say. There's no end game to this. The end game is learning to be so present with yourself that there's no longer anything restricting stuff from coming up. And that's when you just kind of sink into this natural state of equanimity. You just don't mind. It's not that you don't care. You just don't mind. Hello from Canada. Wow, today's question, or Lisa. Today's questions are deep and needed. Connection to and with others and the self, silence and words. It's going to be a very deep event. Thank you, Lisa, my producer of my show. GB, hi GP, and all greetings from London. Struggling today with anxiety. House nearby got burglared, causing me a lot of worry about mine. So taking a lot of comfort from your words, GP. Thanks from Georgia in London. That is absolutely natural, of course. It happens, right? The potential for danger becomes more intimate or imminent. Your nervous system naturally reacts by becoming more alert, right? Okay, can it happen to me? And it starts looking around for all the ways to make sure that doesn't happen. This is okay. This is what it does. This is what it's supposed to do, right? That's what you are feeling as anxiety, right? It's not imaginary, right? This is what your body needs to go through in order to ensure that you are safe. And so some extra alertness is there. Think of it like, a deer or a gazelle or something is feeding, eating some leaves, and the ears are going, right? And it hears a sound in the distance. What does it do? Stops eating, looks around, waits, makes sure that everything is okay, and then just goes back to what it's doing. This is going on constantly. The scanning of the environment is going on constantly. When something happens, it says, okay, maybe there's another level of alertness that is required. So make sure your doors are properly secured. Do everything on a practical level that you need to do, right? Take care of your neighbors, You take care of each other, make it a communal thing that you watch out for each other, right? So that there's not a feeling of isolation. And then when that anxiety comes up, just stay with it, be present with it. Don't fight it. Don't try to make it go away. But also, this is really important. Once you've made sure everything is as safe as you can make it, then the mind will start, because the mind, if it gets excited, right? The alertness is natural. The mind's reaction to it is learned. And so the mind will then say, is there anything else I can do? Did I miss anything? I wonder if that's really locked. Maybe I need to check it again. All of that kind of stuff, you can just say, no, I get it. Thank you. I don't need you right now. And just stay present and let the body process the alertness, right? The mind actually creates an additional layer that isn't necessary. And eventually the body will say, okay, all is well. I'm under control. I'm alert. I know what's going to happen. And you can go back to the calm. And you can even invite it to be alert without creating anxiety. But remember, the anxiety isn't actually the alertness. The anxiety is the mind, and because the mind cannot feel, right? And so it will just assume, well, we got to do something, but it's never satisfied with what it can do, right? The only thing you do basically is, move where there's absolutely no one around, put yourself in an iron cage where nobody can get to you, right? The mind would be happy with that, right? So you don't need to listen to that. Once you know okay, this is it. Now you can just kind of, okay, body, you do the rest, and it will do it, right? When the deer is chomping on the leaf and the ears are doing this, it's not consciously doing this. Right? The system is doing it. It's calm as can be, just enjoying the meal. And then if something gets the attention and it consciously needs to be engaged, it is. So this is how the whole thing works. And this is how you can bring, peace to yourself, to the point where you never actually have to get anxious again about anything, because it's being handled, right? Your mind isn't needed. The whole system knows exactly what to do, right? And your mind doesn't. So it'll just spin. So you can trust in just the natural resilience and intelligence of life itself. And you can, and just allow that trust to grow. So thank you, Georgia. Beautiful, said Mindful. Good. I guess that worked for you. You're right. This is not easy, but apart from the spiritual practice and journey, I will say I felt so blissful earlier today, but my physical symptoms do concern me sometimes. Yeah, they have to be attended to. Body needs something. Really enjoy your British accent. Well, thank you very much. Which one do you like? I got the Liverpool one, the Beatles. I used to do this for a living, folks. It's kind of funny, all the different voices I used to do. It's very fun. Anyway, thanks to the heartfelt response, not just from me, but for many of us. Yeah, you're welcome. J Deep, namaste, GP. When non-duality says that I as awareness am always free, in what sense am I really free? When my mind creates thoughts of suffering, I understand it is my mind, and I'm just being aware of it. But that does not change the thought. So if awareness is not free to choose change what it wants to be aware of, in what sense awareness of the real I is free? Very good. Very, very good. Choosing is also thought, and it's happening, and our choices happen as a result of our conditioning, right? And that's perfectly natural. Choosing this or that, or not choosing, that is, the conditioning that basically forces a behavior, right? As opposed to the conditions that will grant you some degree of autonomy so that I can decide whether I'm going to do it or not, which is actually an illusion. You never actually decide anything. It is simply this flow of energy that's constantly happening. So nothing is ever choosing anything. That's actually what is happening. but just become aware of the awareness itself, and in this constant flow of choices, right? There is the capacity, as we spiritually grow, to recognize that a particular thought has an origin and a tendency that no longer serves you. The recognition of that, which is not a choice, by the way, it's spiritual growth, automatically begins to shift your relationship with that. You don't immediately get sucked into it. Now, some are very ingrained habits, and you'll find yourself getting sucked into it. But then, oh, really? I just got sucked into it again. And you pull yourself you pull yourself back out of that. It seems like there's a choice happening, and it's okay to call it a choice. But when you really look deeply, you realize what's actually happening is there's an expanding of an awareness that's taking place, which is redefining all of these things. And what was attractive before is no longer attractive. And when it becomes unattractive, we naturally withdraw our attention from it. When we're not interested in it anymore, our attention comes away from it. So even that sense of, I want to choose what I am more aware of, notice that that's a very subtle energy of the egoic mind, which wants control. Awareness doesn't need control. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what it's aware of. It is pure awareness, right? It's not trying to interact, right? The only need to interact would arise from the fact that you would think that there's the me and this universe out here functioning by itself, and then there's awareness here that is aware of it, and that they are two. They're not, right? And this is where the attention gets focused. And at first it might not be easy. Well, God, just pure awareness. Why would I be aware of such a mess? That's just the thought, which is trying to analyze it. Don't analyze it. Stay with the awareness, and it will reveal all of it, exactly why it is the way it is. And it does that by simply breaking things down. It just kind of breaks down what we believe is happening and shows us what's actually happening. And it is simply the arising of patterns of thought that don't have a thinker, they don't have an origin, they don't have an I. They're just patterns of thought. And like everything in the universe is simply energy conforming to a pattern, so are your thoughts. And there's no I there that is choosing or resisting. That too is just part of what's arising. Just keep bringing your attention back to the awareness, not as an object you're thinking about, but the fact that you are aware. That's all you have to do. I am aware, right? Well, that is the awareness. The moment I say awareness and I make it a noun, we start thinking of it as something else because the mind tries to turn it into an object, into an other. What I'm actually saying is, you're aware, right? I am aware of that. I am the awareness. So let's just be with that awareness and become really fascinated by the fact that everything in awareness is constantly changing, but the awareness isn't. And just let that absorb your attention, and it will answer all the rest of the questions. Beautiful. Thank you for that regarding trigger. You're welcome, Melissa. Milo. Sorry, I meant special when you have a lot of them, singularities in your life. Yes, it's a sign. It is a sign of your expanding self-awareness. It's a sign that the false sense of self is lessening. It's dissolving, and you're seeing more and more the connections between things. Oops, sorry. And as a result, that's having an effect on actually accelerating the entire process, making you even more aware, until eventually there aren't singularities. There's only the self. I pulled up to the guard shack. Here's Jay. I didn't see the guard lady wave some sign to me. It was like, what does that mean? She seemed annoyed. I didn't understand it and gave me attitude. Told me where to park afterwards. I didn't say anything and proceeded. That might have been a subtle reactive pattern. Afterwards, my mind was making up all kinds of thoughts. Why do people behave like this? It's because this and that. She needs to lighten up, etc. I'm glad I see the LOL. Just notice what your mind does. You don't have to change it. You don't have to fix it. Don't have to stop it. Don't have to do anything. Just watch it. Right? If it doesn't get your engagement, your participation, no thought pattern has energy of its own. It is not self-generating. It is completely dependent upon you and your attention. Constant, like a little kid trying to get your attention, completely dependent upon it. If you don't give it to the little kid. They need it. Don't give it to your mind. It doesn't need it. Carl Lucy, hey GP, you mentioned in an interview that love was safety, feeling safe. It's made a lot of sense to me. Could confuse me also. If I ever really loved someone, just felt felt safe with them. It's really love is an abstraction. Let's put all that to the side. What is your experience of love? Right? That feeling of affection, that feeling of wanting to get closer or of unity, feeling of appreciation, love of music or art or something. When you feel that way towards someone, the degree to which you can will be completely dependent upon the degree to which you allow yourself to feel safe to love. Right? Now, the more love is felt, the more safe you feel. Right? Which comes first, love or the feeling of safety? They're actually one. Love is the absolute reality. It is the pure oneness of all being. And therefore, it is really prior to everything. But that is beyond our word love, right? It's an unfathomable, transcendent love. It's agape love, right? Which would be useless if it didn't manifest itself in form. Well, how does it manifest itself in form? In relationship, primarily. A relationship with everything, right? Everything is a relationship, right? The cells come together in love to make the body, or a tree, or this microphone, or whatever it happens to be. In a relationship, yes, you have really loved someone. Of course you have. In your loving of them, you want it to be safe for them. It's a welcoming. It's an opening. You are safe for them. That's love known. That's love made manifest. Right? And the more you're safe with you, the more you can do that for others. And the best relationship are those that do it for each other. Right? We all recognize that there are things that are going to be triggering us. Parts of us we want to hide. Right? Parts of us we hope nobody sees. Our dirty little secrets. Our ugly stuff. And if you can create an environment with somebody else in which it's okay to feel that. Your insecurities and your self-doubts, and you don't have to hide it, right? It's the most beautiful environment for the deepest kind of healing. That's what a genuine relationship can do, and that's what they should do. So you're going to tend to love people that you feel safe with, right? I don't really know how to separate the two. When love is unconditional, safety is total. There's no fear in unconditional love. So it is a sense of perfect safety, perfect wholeness, perfect presence. So the answer is yes, you have loved. Of course you have. That feeling of love, we all know what that is. And part and parcel of that, right, is the feeling of being safe with them. You can't love somebody you don't feel safe with, right? The idea that of we could love a God that could condemn you to eternal suffering is absurd. You cannot love that God. Yahweh is unlovable. You can worship, you can fear, you cannot love. So the idea of that is just the horrible distortion of the human mind. Thank you, Carl. Wow, I felt your words. We are all one heart. I do feel people's feelings. Very true. Abla el Asari. Sorry, I butchered your name, I'm sure. Yes. We only believe ourselves to be separate. We're not. So it's really surprising somebody has a psychic ability. Right? It's not surprising, of course, right? The idea of being a bunch of separate selves wears thin in some places, and people have these experiences, and it seems to be some kind of this personal power, and it's not. There is no separation. Yeah. We are literally one. We're all different faces on the same soul. All of it. This mic, the trees, the cat that wanders by occasionally. All. Jonas, the entire heart of humanity is open to you. Just so much beauty in this. Hundreds of years of the best. So profound and beautiful. Just truth. Yep, just truth. Nothing but truth. So help you God. Peter in Italy. Good evening, Georgie and everyone. Nice to be here. Nice to have you. Isabel. Hello, all. And Fear, G.B. Walsh. Hello. I don't think that's quite what you meant to say. It's okay. Glad you're sounding and feeling better. Sean, thank you. Yeah. What about balance and health of the body and imbalances? It's getting on here, and I got a lot still. Oh, good God. I'm not going to get through them all today. I'm making my answers a little bit longer, but I'll do a little bit more. Well, what is health? But everything functioning normally. That's health, right? So if you're not healthy, things aren't functioning normally. The medical approach, the standard medical approach, which is waning, thank God, is that it is simply a physiological thing, and you just fix it. You intervene with a drug or operation or something, and you just change the way it operates. A complete ignoring of a more subtle level underneath, of which the body is simply the manifestation. So something that is out of balance or unhealthy, right, needs to be brought into balance. This is why I teach and favor energetic healing as opposed to, it's why I'm not a doctor, right? And many doctors are realizing this. There are holistic practitioners and like many doctors have become quite holistic about it to really see as an entire being that the separation of mind, body, and emotions is purely conceptual. It's not real, and they really are one functioning system. But in medicine, the traditional allopathic medicine is still taught in the schools. Is still reductionist. Divided up, this little piece, this little piece, this little piece. So the primary imbalance is you're out of balance, out of sync, out of contact with your true being. I call it a soul disconnect. And the soul disconnect will manifest itself in all sorts of ways, physical, emotional, and mental. And so the key is to reestablish that essential relationship with yourself. That's why I call it inner reconciliation. You're reconnecting with your own soul, which is the wholeness of you, which got disconnected, well, apparently disconnected, just through the troubles, the stuff we went through as children, where it wasn't safe to be ourselves. Not being safe to be yourself, the energy system had to basically hide the real you away, because you got in trouble if you were really you, create a false version of yourself to present to the environment so that it would get its needs met. And This is the essential schism. This is the soul disconnect, right? It did it so thoroughly and with such fervor to keep you safe that you don't even know it happened. Your whole sense of identity got built around this false persona that was created by the nervous system to protect the real you. This whole teaching of non-duality and inner reconciliation is to, as Ramana Maharshi put it, go back the way you came, turn around and walk back to that which you really are, and liberate that. And then that becomes the energy that gets made manifest in the body, and that manifests itself as better health, better relationships, better everything, because it's the real you. You know, what we're all craving is ourselves. And the awakening is usually starts as this kind of annoying sense that things aren't quite right because they're not. and that annoying sense drives us to find that annoying sense is suffering. That's dukkha. That's that sense of discontent is what Buddha meant when he said suffering. It's not the huge stuff. It's that. And when we start paying attention to that, like it's a burning bush, and we're going to look at it now instead of just walk by it, in the midst of the burning bush is where Moses heard the voice of God. So in the midst of that annoyance, the midst that something's not right here, is the voice of your true being coming to the surface. Now, the mind will look everywhere, you know, self-help, personal, all sorts of different things, success techniques and the like, which will have a temporarily dulling experience, right? If all of a sudden I'm real successful, I commit all so else, and every one of my needs is met, and I can have whatever I want, for a while, that the annoying voice may be suppressed, right? But it'll eventually, yeah, but there'll always be this yeah, but going on. Eventually we turn, just like Moses did. And in that myth, I mean, it says, I mean, they even say it twice. He sees the burning bush. He says to himself, I now am going to turn aside and look at this. It's as if he's seen it a whole bunch of times before. Said, yeah, oh, whatever, and just kept going, just didn't register. This time it's like, I'm going to take a look at this. The moment he did, the moment he turned in that direction, he hears the voice of God. Moses, take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. The moment you turn within, you are standing on holy ground. And it feels as a burning fire, and it is. It will burn up everything that isn't you. And what remains? Just you. And the religious name for you is God. The street name for you is me. Not me, GP. I mean, you. Damn language. Thank you so much for your answer, Karen, about relationships with family. YT is not a place for me to tell more, but yesterday some thoughts concerning that appeared, and just now you brought me back to my truth, which was clearly felt at the time of decisions, but somehow some doubts come. Now I've realized once more these doubts come from the conditioning only. Ah, yay! And from this family pressure then. I'm so grateful for Karen's question, your answer, which have come just now. Yes, the doubts are conditioning. The doubting mind isn't you. You're trained to doubt. Right? Some were trained, were trained to be just downright cynical. Sean, sometimes I have a weird feeling of been dropped into this body right this second, that my past is just made up or interpreted through some memories that aren't really mine. Am I nuts? Yeah, you are. But let's put that aside for a moment. The past is made up, right? There are events that take place, and we don't have to, deny the whole thing. Like, but remember, our interpretation of what happened are two different things. It's changing constantly, One time I look back, this is the most horrible thing. Another time it's like, yeah, it was no big deal. What changed, right? The storyteller is forever active, and it's just making up a story that fits the context that it's comfortable with in the moment. So take it all with a grain of salt, right? The history is essentially an illusion. Everything is happening spontaneously in this moment. But because the spontaneous happening is not haphazard, right? The manifestation of the self is not chaotic, right? Like a dream where, you know, 1 minute you're in a car, the next minute it's turned into a bouquet of flowers, and you don't think anything of it. It doesn't work like that. In our waking state, everything is just very gradual, right? But what is appearing in the now is just the thing that's happening after it and after it and after it, right? After it, like frames of a movie going by, right? Right. It just happens to be what's being projected in that moment. Our sense of memory gives it a sense of continuity. But in fact, it's just this thing that is the picture that is changing slowly. That's all. That's all it is, right? And so you don't need to hold on to any story about what was true, right? You know, in working with people energetically in terms of healing and the like, we will work with the story to let go of it, right? So we no longer define ourselves by that story. And that has to happen on a level deeper than just, you know, saying it's not true. Because there's energetic patterns put in place that assume that it was true. We have to reach to that level to actually be liberated totally. So you're not nuts. Exactly the opposite. You're quite sane, and you're beginning to see things that are quite subtle and so contrary to the way people normally think that it seems quite strange, even irrational. This is the realm of reality. And welcome home. Melissa, that helps to hear. Great, wonderful. Faith. Recently I had a chance to have nice moments I enjoyed with my family and by myself. However, I feel guilty afterward as my mind wants me to feel horrible at everything here. So I'll have enough energy to achieve my dream of immigration. It's like isn't that a beautiful insight? It's like my unhappiness about that is the fuel. I'm confused as my heart starts to open so I can see deeply why my parents and people behave. Yes. It's just it's a false idea that we've all kind of have, that if I'm not suffering, I won't grow. At the root of all evolution and growth is love's desire to express itself, right? So it's beautiful. Recognize that. What's really important for me, Faith, is that you recognized that. That to me is the best sign, right? You don't need unhappiness to grow, right? And the fact that you can have a nice moment with your family, enjoy them, right? Even though they really can't see you and accept you as you are, as you've come to know yourself, right? Is an actual sign of your growth in grace. And you can let that grow and simultaneously notice that happened, and you still have the desire to immigrate. It didn't go away. That your desire to expand into and to move somewhere where you feel more free, that hasn't gone anywhere. So you don't need that suffering of unhappiness to motivate you. And wouldn't it be much more wonderful if the great transformation you're looking for grew out of your love rather than your discontent? Which do you think is going to be would be more satisfied? Which do you think is more likely to come to pass? I can see deeply why my parents and the people here behave the way they do. That is a flowering of the heart. That is what brings about the transformation. That's what I've been looking for. Music for pets. Great. Sadly, your moderator appears to have removed my comments. Oh, really? I don't have a moderator. Wow, what happened? Comments from here today? I sent nothing but love from the Isle of Wight. I don't have a moderator here. I don't know what happened. And I haven't removed anything, so I'm sorry about that. Never had a comment removed before. That's okay. Love to you all. I'm sorry about that. I have no idea that happened. If you could give me more details about it, like send it to support@gpwelsh.com, I can look into it and try to figure out what happened. If you have a screenshot or something, because I didn't do that, and I certainly wouldn't. I mean, I have, when they're just totally annoying, or advertising for some sex site or something, then I have. But otherwise, I take whatever is given to me. So I apologize profusely for that. Music for pets. I could feel compassion easier, and at the same time I feel afraid. Yes. Yeah, I think you can see that you can do both. She felt to share that with you. Listen to the wisdom. Beautiful. Clay Sue took one vaccine to get a passport, which is mission to my communal ceramic space. Feel I totally violated myself, and one cannot see how I can make a second one. Still, I feel totally ripped apart. Do not see how I can spend my time alone, not doing my ceramic art, which is my therapy as well as my expression. So many people are feeling that, and I'm so glad you brought that here, because again, I'm not anti-vax. I'm not pro-vax. I'm pro everybody deciding for themselves, and to truly and to weigh all of the options, right? Do as much research as you can. Obviously, I don't know, maybe some of us here are, really know how to do research. Actually, I do know there are a couple of people here who actually do, scientific types, who know how to do research at that level to really be certain. The rest of us are relying on our intuition in the moment. And, people say, I research. And really what it means is they sorted through stuff, so they found what confirmed their bias, which is not research whatsoever. I know I have limited ability in that regard. I'm not a virologist, an immunologist, or anything like that. I have, as everybody should have, a very profound distrust of the pharmaceutical industry. It is driven by profits, not by helping human beings. That's a fact. That's documented in their own documents that got released. I have followed up every single bit of information I could get about all the stuff that was supposedly in the vaccines. I could find no confirmation of it. That doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean it's hidden. But you realize, to completely throw all of that out, you have to deny the validity of absolutely everything that is the structure of the culture and the society in which we're living, right? And replace it with what, right? As somebody, somebody who read a couple of Facebook posts and did a meme or something, and it's like, this really is quite a precarious position we find ourselves in. Where we really don't trust the governments, and we shouldn't. We don't trust the companies, and we shouldn't. Yet at the same time, there is a power being exercised over us that we have to try to conform to, in order to have to experience the kind of freedom that we had enjoyed, the kind of economic, political, freedom of movement and that sort of thing. I'm not talking about inner freedom. That has nothing to do with this. Right? So it's really simply this: you made a choice. You made a choice that yes, there's a moral issue about the vaccine, and there's also this thing which is just this integral part of my life, which I will be denied. Now, what's the best way to deal with that? I don't think anybody should be denied on that round, but I'm not in power. I don't have those rights. And I can understand even somebody with a real heart and with a genuine conscience trying to weigh between the safety that they feel is represented by the vaccine and a person's right to choose. And of course, this has always been the gray area that those who love power jump on to grab more authority. So those waters get muddled. So notice, I'm not telling you what to do, but I am telling you this, that whatever you decide is okay. It is okay. Right now, there are people yell at me and say, "No, it's evil, the vaccines," and it's like, prove it to me, please. Prove it to me. Right? I'm more than happy to agree with that. Prove it to me. And I don't like going along with it just because it becomes an encroachment on rights. But at the same time, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God. We can't just completely cut ourselves off from life. We can't, just go completely off grid, go away from the whole thing. So you're kind of in that position that you're going to make the best possible decision you can in the moment, weighing honestly in your whole heart everything that has to be considered. And I ask people to do that with your heart, not with some adherence to some ideal, whether that be anti-vaccine or pro-vaccine. Does this actually work for me? What is it that I need to do in my life right now? Discretion is the better part of valor. Me just, waving something, refusing to get vaccinated or refusing to wear a mask or something is not going to have any effect on the continual power grab that's going on, right? I can have an effect on that, but that's not how it's going to happen. And just becoming more virulent and more angry about it, and it isn't going to make any difference. We have to allow our lives to function as best we can. And it sounds like I'm making a case for the vaccine. In a certain sense, I am, because you seem to have actually already chosen it, and now we're dealing with the fact that, did I do the right thing? Right? And now you're halfway through, and you could stop taking the other part of it. But to not take it has consequences that you will have to accept, right? And so you better make sure that this ideal you're living up to is one that you're willing to sacrifice for. Or if maybe there's another way you can go about doing it, right? I'm just being as open about this as I possibly can, because I am not going to sit here and tell anybody what to do. That is not the job of a spiritual teacher. And any spiritual teacher that does, don't listen to them, because they're taking sides, right? So I will leave it at that for you, Klesu. I do hope that helps. I know it's not easy. And I know a lot of people struggling with it, just like you. Yeah. So, wow. I hope that helps everyone, actually, whether you've taken it or not. David and Elaine, if silence is the language of God, then the words arising out of this silence are also the language of God. Yes, the waves are the ocean. The silly thing is we think of ourselves looking for the self, and it's like the wave looking for the ocean. It is the ocean. We're all deeply appreciative of the richness of the words you insightfully use here. Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I remember the other times my life was the same position. This one seems definitive advice. I do think I covered it there for you, Klesu. And yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah, this is the nature of life. Sometimes the decisions are not easy, and a perfect one doesn't exist. We cling to a particular idealistic point of view to try to create a perfect solution. There is no such thing, right? Are vaccines by nature evil? Obviously not. Right? There are many things that they eradicated, right? Are what they've become evil? Are the companies evil? That's cool. Yeah. Is it not everybody? Every scientist working on it? No, obviously not. They're wanting to help humanity. Right? The major stockholders, very well could be. Yeah. Probably, actually. Lisa says, thank you. Roz Gray, it seems to me that mysticism is the experience that we are not so much connected to the universe more than we are in separate. Yes, right. You go beyond the relationship with God to the very essence of God. I am that. You go beyond duality. That's what Meister Eckhart taught. That's why he got put on trial for excommunication after he was dead, because he was so influential. They didn't touch him then. So, hi, Jorge. Hi, dear. I think my body is an expression of the self. My real nature is not my body in such a way that I should not identify with my body. Isn't that so? Absolutely. Oh, there we go. Webcams chat, hot girls. Block the user. If it's a bot, it could come again. Everything shared today, appreciated. You're welcome. Yes, that's exactly the case, Jorge. Yeah. The body is not the self, and yet it is. It falls away. In language, we have to say it is an expression of the self, but it's not. But even, it's not the self. But even in that, you can see we create a subtle duality, as if it is something else other than. The self is all there is. The wave is the ocean. The words are the silence. The music is the silence. You are the emptiness. Everything you experience is the emptiness. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Maribeth in Southern Cal. Thanks, GP. Divinely practical, purely practical, divinely practical. Yes. Thanks, Georgia. As always, your pointers. There's, more hot girls. Not timeout. I'm going to block you. Go away. Oh, no. Boy. Oh, did I block Ava? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Can I unblock you? Ava, I'm sorry. Somehow I was blocking the hot girls and boys. Let's be fair. And I ended up blocking Ava as well. I will, I don't see your name. Please tell you have been wonderful. Oh, tell you have been wonderful. Thank you, Ellen. God bless you. And thanks for your time, your love. That's the eye that speaks is the eye that hears. Peace and love, music for pets. Thank you. Thanks, GP. Don't worry, maybe a ghost in the machine. It's your trip to Europe. You are welcome to come join us in the Isle of Wight. Lovely. UK, my lovely land I watch every week. Yay, wonderful. Hi from Israel. There's Jay again. I'm going to cut it now. So hopefully I got to everybody, and I will check. I'm sorry, Ava. My dear Ava, I think I accidentally blocked you. Hopefully that's just for now. We'll try to get you back on. We will fix that for sure. Okay, everyone. Thank you all for being here with me. Thank you for thank you for loving the truth. What else can I say? Thank you for loving the truth, because that's what it's about. You love the words that come out of my mouth. It's only because you love the truth. That's all. So, until next time, love you all. Namaste.